Hello all, welcome back. This will be the third look at the progression systems of The Witcher 3, this time focusing on skills and abilities. Quickly apologise for the familiar scenery for anyone returning. There's a big save game issue with this game, so I'm fairly limited in where I can flick back to. I figured it was better to go somewhere with no spoilers. So then, skills. Skills are mostly skill tree stuff. Now, a quick recap from the first bit: you get a point most hours for about 30 hours worth of gameplay. So 34 points in total. If we flick to character dev, you can level up anytime you're not in combat by through the meditate. Just looks like this. Meditate, go to character. There's nothing fancy here. And you get this skill tree. Now, first up, you'll notice there's quite a lot there. You only get 34 points. Now, let's have a look at the first thing. When you first enter the game, you have these four trees presented to you: magic, alchemy, swordsmanship, and training. Very little info is given to you on them. You have to commit points in the training tree before you unlock the others. I like this. This is quite smart. It means it basically forces you to pick up some core skills, and I don't even think they took it far enough. I think they should have maybe made it a bit cheaper, which I'll explain in a minute, but given you some more impactful skills. So skills that it wants to teach you gradually, and it makes you pick them up anyway. So it makes you pick up a few of the core skills before you can go off and do a specialized build, which for me is fine. It makes some sense. And I like the idea of including that in a game with quite complex progression. First things, there are trees. There are contingent skills, so you can see here you have to purchase the one of the bottom in 3 before you can get this one here, and then you obviously have to purchase this parrying here before you can buy arrow redirection or fortitude. So it has contingent skills. What I love is that it has backwards pathing. Now, what I mean by backwards pathing, if I flick over into swordsmanship, you'll be able to see it here. I wanted to buy Whirl earlier in the game, but I didn't want to purchase Position, which gets rid of your back damage. Here's the issue: in most games I'd have to purchase Position and Violence to get to Whirl, and I don't like buying things I don't want to get something I do want, which is why skill trees, if they're not really well designed, can be quite clunky and quite annoying. But this one at least has backwards pathing. What I mean by this is, I took the route, this one. I went Riposte, Guard. I really wish it let me use my mouse cursor, but it doesn't. Tough Guy, up to the Heart there on Hardy, and then backwards to Whirl. So I never actually had to get this Position one. And I like this. Backward pathing is always a good thing. It's not always a good thing, but in this case, it's definitely a good thing. What else have we got? We've got branches. As you can see, there's a few opportunities where we can kind of come here and then we can choose our favourite of the 3 and then move up through that way. Love branches. Choice is good. Upgradable skills. Each one of these points is upgradable, and I love this system. I mean, I really love this. They've done really well in this game. Obviously, most people know that, or if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know I like skill trees to make the game more fun, produce meaningful change, and reward all playstyles. Now, there is no arguing that this game would not be as fun without development, and there's no arguing that it doesn't reward all playstyles, because the tree does. There's one for each of the 3: magic focused, sword focused, and alchemy focused. That's great. However, you could argue that this game only really has one playstyle, and it's about using all 3. And the game would be much more enjoyable that way, but hey, never mind. But anyway, the meaningful change that I like to see in skill upgrades, it doesn't always exist. If you look at individual nodes, they vary in quality. Some of them give new active abilities. Riposte is a great example. Riposte gives you the ability to counter a blow, not just to block it, but to actually actively block and counter attack. I love that it gives new active abilities. There's not many of these in the trees, but there's a couple that make the game more interesting. Some of these here, like combat acumen, unlock group finishers and stuff like that for use. They're fine. Some of them give stats. Let's have a look. So you have stats like plus 5% sword damage, then goes up to plus 15. I normally don't like stats in skill trees. It doesn't... Very rarely is it well done. However, this game has chosen to give massive amounts of stats for investment in skill trees. Now let me show you what I mean. This one here, plus 100 vitality, plus 150 vitality, there's 4 points worth, and 250 vitality. If I go to character and look at my max vite, I've only got 500. So those 4 skill points gave me over half my health. So skill points do have a massive impact on stats, and it's okay the way they've done it, because they've, I guess, they've made sure the increases are not small. It's not plus 2% this, plus 3% this, which The Witcher 3 gets wrong. Too many of the stat increases are too minimal, and you don't feel them, and they're not fun, and they're not satisfying. At least in this they are. Other I guess abilities or nodes here, enhance existing moves. So this one increases the distance that you dodge. Now I don't treat this as a statistical thing, because it changes the feel of the game and not just the numbers. There's others in here. Let's have a look. Where are they? There's some that let you parry arrows when you could already parry and things like that. Redirect arrows when you can already block them, and this sort of thing. So a lot of the nodes are really good without going through all of them. There are some that are boring, like plus 2% chance of instant kill. Seems insignificant, but it actually has quite a big impact, particularly if you use a lot of light attacks. So there's that. Upgrading nodes. Typically in games, when they allow you to upgrade a node, you'll get something like plus 5% on the first one, plus 10% on the second one. This game does a really nice job. It upgrades a second point investment, and there is only ever 2 point investments allowed, is fantastic. They're so well rewarded. It's amazing, really, actually, how well they reward them. I'm just seeing if there's any that I can actually see. So riposte here changes it from a standard riposte to a 10% chance of instant kill, which is pretty damn good. They go from things like, this one was originally 50 vitality, 50 vitality and 5% damage reduction. It gave me an extra 100 health and an extra 10% damage reduction for the second point. And so the second point is almost always worth way more than the first. So it creates this nice system, because normally in skill trees, the ones furthest away from the root, so obviously the root in this is the center, and I guess the top of the tree is this end here with Whirlwind. The skills at the top of the tree are normally far superior to the ones at the root. So it makes more sense normally to just purchase, and you just go 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, and then maybe you go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 right at the end for maximum benefit. This game's done a really nice job of making sure the ones down at the bottom, the upgrades, are easily comparable to the high-end skills, and I really like that. It does 2 things. It means that any early investments in doubling up points aren't wasted, and it also means that you can branch out a little bit more than you could otherwise. If you look at things like this, vitality synthesis plus 20, that becomes plus 100 on the second point, if I remember. So it allows a little bit of branching with this very strong double point investment focus, and I really like that. However, here's another issue. Here is probably the biggest issue. You only get 34 points. Now let's put that in perspective. You need to spend 6 points in training before you're allowed into any of the other trees. 6 points in training, minus 34, we have 28 left. 28 points is not enough to finish this tree. you can't even finish a single tree. And by finish, I mean buy everything and upgrade everything. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It costs 30 points to finish a single tree, and you only have 26 points to spend. So that's interesting. And you might go, well, yeah, but it's about builds, and it's about paths, and it's about branching. Well, let's just quickly look at that. For me, branches are normally mutually exclusive. So, for example, on Swords 1, we have 3 branches right from the start. Here, we have the do lots of damage, lots of counterattacks, and bit of mobility branch. And they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. You can choose to get all of them if you want to get all of them. And I'd rather have choice, but sometimes the mutual exclusivity works. So it allows you to buy them all, which a lot of new players would do. If you don't know what the max level is or how often you're going to get skill points, you'll go, oh, that looks cool, I'll get that. And you end up spending a lot of points in these early areas, or you start buying things before you move on, and you kind of see that this is split up into 3 tiers of skills. You can see you have these kind of the base of the tree, this trunk left here, then you have this middle section, this middle diamond, and then you have these 2 on the end, and this is quite consistent in all the trees. You can see you've got this base section, then a central diamond, and then an end progression, but there's another branch at the end of the alchemy tree. And again, you can see 3 fairly distinct regions in the magic one. So you can easily get to this situation where somebody's invested in upgrades too much and they never get the enhanced abilities, because there is a finisher move in each of the 3 trees basically, or something that lets you use your adrenaline stat. Adrenaline builds up as you attack or as you poison, depending on which tree you invest in, and you use it for a big boost in power. And it's a shame because these skill trees are really well done. I'm not saying they're not as good as something like Dying Light, which everything has a massive impact on gameplay, but it's a different type of game. But they're really quite interesting, and they add lots of fun to the gameplay. The ones in the magic tree enhance your range, the power, their efficacy by quite substantial amounts. They give the abilities different effects. They change the fireball to like a fire cone. They let you tame multiple opponents instead of one. They're quite good. They're the things you'd want to experience. And if this was a game with a substantial amount of replayability, you could argue that, you know, this is okay, because maybe one time you play sword focused, and another time you play alchemy focused, and another time you play magic focused. But in reality, this isn't a game with a massive amount of replayability. There are choices you can make, and maybe you'd want to go back through and see what happens if you make the different choices. But it's the percentage of people that even finish games, never mind replay them, is very, very low. So most players are never going to experience even a third of what this progression system has to offer, and that's a damn shame, when clearly a lot of thought's been put into it. I'd have actually rather have seen them give you 3 times as many levels, so have you level up 3 times as fast, and just toned down the statistical enhancements that these give to stop the health and things and the damage getting out of control. Because in reality, you don't do any more damage if you've maxed out the magic tree and maxed out the alchemy tree. Okay, you will do a bit, but you're not going to do double damage, if you get me. So with a bit of toning, that could easily be balanced, and you could allow you to max out and take multiple paths down multiple trees, creating this beautiful end state where you've got some interesting alchemy things. Maybe you've developed your bombs but not your potions, and maybe you've developed your defensive sword play and your offensive magic. So you kind of develop down all 3 trees with loads more skill points, or maybe you max out one and tickle the others. And it would have just made for a way more interesting gameplay experience, and you'd get to experience so much more of the game has to offer, because all 3 of these trees are quite fun. Obviously, we can only see one of my saves here, and I daren't load up the save editor for the game crashing. But swordplay can be okay on this game. It's not the best, but it's alright. Magic can be quite fun, and alchemy is a massive part of the Witcher franchise, and it is quite fun. And it would have just been nice to be able to mix 3 fun things and have a great time playing through the game the one or the twice that you're going to play it, rather than requiring you to play through it time and time again to experience it all. Now, The Witcher 3 remedied this a little bit in the sense that there are respec potions. Respec potions allow you to just reallocate all your stat points, and it means if you make a mistake you can do it over. And that's nice. Now, there's a couple of issues with the investment remorse in this game. The first is, there is, as far as I know, only one opportunity in the entire game to respec, and most players will never find that. So there's no respecking. There is respecking for a very small amount of players. So that means any point you spend and regret later on would be a shame. For example, I chose to get 50 vitality. I shouldn't have on this particular playthrough. I should have gone for the vigor regeneration while out of combat, or something else, probably fortitude. There you go, vigor regen in combat instead of that. But there's nothing I could do about that on this particular save. Now, because you're not going to replay, you need respec, particularly if the game is long. Now, this game is only about 20 to 30 hours, so this is the sitch that you've got. It's more that players are only going to experience a very small amount of everything the game actually has to offer, because they are great. Using oils and bombs and the advanced potions can be a lot of fun, and I'm going to come back and look at potions and alchemy development in the next video. So we have this. In addition to the skill tree then, which is great, you just don't get to experience enough of it, we have this. You've seen attributes earlier. Knowledge. Knowledge builds up as you read books on and kill enemies of types. Now, this is pretty bland in this game. It's another area of development. Now, all it does is it gives you hints about how you should kill stuff. So it says hydrangeas are good if coated with blade oils. Neckers can be and can't be bled, or that sort of thing. Use bombs. It's info, not actual progression. And by comparison, The Witcher 3 gives you unique abilities as you learn about enemies. So I believe there's something that lets you cut the tongue off a grave hag with a well-timed attack after you've learned enough about grave hags. Dragon Age, by contrast, gives you, as you learn more and more about enemies, you get flat damage bonuses. Not interesting like The Witcher 3 is in a couple of circumstances, but at least it's something. So I'm a bit mixed. This doesn't really have a big impact. The weirdest bit is this. Now this is really weird. This is the abilities page. These are passive buffs, permanent passive buffs, which are gained not randomly but inconsistently and intermittently throughout the entire game. The first one is found in a hilarious tribute to Assassin's Creed. And this is the thing, some of these, you just walk around the world, you see something, and you find it, and it's like, boom, the assassin ability pops up. And now all of a sudden I get plus 25% damage from behind, which is a nice way of rewarding exploration gameplay. But, and just the assassins one, just for the record, you walk around a corner and there's a hay cart, and next to the hay cart there is a guy in a white cloak with a red sash, and he's face planted next to the hay cart. It's just brilliant, and you get this assassin thing. So I love that it rewards exploration, because the game doesn't do that enough. But they're so weird and they're so inconsistent. Like the Axisign Hex upgrades the more and more you use the hex. It gets more and more effective. Intimidation, I believe, is the same. Cover, I've got no idea what I got it for. Strong back. What did that pop up for? It's something really, really early. Can't remember. Strong stomach was a pseudo quest event reward for drinking a specific potion. Conjurer's a little bit of sign damage. I can't remember what that was for. Birdman, killing lots of harpies, I got that for. So they're really inconsistent. They don't exist for all enemy types. They're not found in every zone. There is no tracker to tell you when you found all the abilities that a zone can give. They just make this kind of surprise bonus, and it's actually okay. There's plenty more. I got about twice that amount by the end of the game in a 30-hour playthrough. So, and some of them are nice. Some of them are very, very interesting. Like, I think there's one that mutates the Ard sign. The Ard sign is a simple pushback normally. It turns it into a freezing Ard. A freezing Ard has a chance to freeze them. They mutate the abilities. Now, I would have loved to have seen this implemented in a more interesting way. And it's one thing, and I did a little redesign piece on The Witcher 3 last year, and I'll come back to in a couple of months. But there are places of power in this game. Now, what I mean by places of power, I bet I'm stood next to one. I'll take a little trot outside. There are locations where your medallion in the top left rumbles, and it says, hey, you're near a place of power. Now, they don't look the same all the time, but they always have this red aura, and when you stand in there, you get a temporary buff. Now, these temporary buffs are okay, because you can run around, they recharge after a while, and you can pick them back up. But I would have rather have had these mutate existing abilities, particularly magical and mutagen based ones, and because this place of power idea just seems great, and it gives you a fair chance to find them. You get this medallion vibration, which I'm bound to get. I think there's one over here. There you go. And when I step in there, I get this temporary buff. I would have loved to have seen these build up my abilities and add to the progression a bit, and then eventually maybe mutate them after I found enough. That would have been more interesting. This random will give you one for choosing this option in this conversation, or hey, look, you found this guy in a ditch, so you get this massively powerful ability. Doesn't seem quite right. I think maybe they should have built up and then given you a choice, so it gives you like 10 place of power points, and when you get 50 you get an ability and you get to choose the ability, or maybe it chooses it for you. I don't know. It just would have made the whole thing a little bit more structured, and it would have made better use of these places of power, which have been thoughtfully put in the game, and this is something that definitely carries over to The Witcher 2. Short-term buffs from these is nice, but a long-term benefit would be better. The Witcher 3 also gives a skill point. This game could have done the same. But I definitely like giving passive abilities, strong passive abilities outside the skill tree. It just would have been better if they were more consistently placed throughout the game. So, that is abilities as far as I can tell. The skill trees are pretty damn good. Some of it's statistical, but at least it's significant benefits. You feel the difference, and they are fun. All three branches bring some nice fun gameplay. I just wish there was a way to experience more of it throughout the game for the average player, rather than just people who replay and replay and replay, because playing the sword route, which a lot of people will do on their first playthrough or their only playthrough, is not that exciting, and it would be way better to mix into magic and alchemy a hell of a lot more. So maybe something to encourage you to do that. Now, a way they could have done that is by giving out more skill points and maybe making the high-end skills cost more skill points to purchase, which a lot of games do. So it encourages you to branch out at the base of the other trees and buy a couple of introductory things in the magic and the alchemy tree, even if you're going to focus on the sword tree, because they're so cheap, you may as well have the benefit. So there's options like that. So that's it. That is the slightly bizarre, but overall not bad, skills and abilities of The Witcher 2. I've got one final video to do. Link will be here when it's done. If not, please sub, and it'll pop up when it does soon, I imagine. Final look's going to be looking at alchemy development, and how bombs, potions, throwing items and oils develop throughout the game. It'll just be a quick look because it's quite a simple system, but that's it. Take it easy. Happy gaming.